You're listening to FFOP Radio.
Reach the
Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. My name's Dave, and this is a Fistful podcast from FFOPradio.com. Back for another great week. Let me introduce you to my co-host this time around, and by now you're pretty familiar with him. He is my Larry Bud Melman, if that's a reference. It barely is to me, so I don't know where you're going to fall with it. But, enough of that bullshit. Let me introduce my guest, my co-host. It's PJ, back on the show. Paulie. Something.
I have arrived.
Yeah, here he is.
Some people will get that reference. Not you, though.
Listen, I've given up on trying to get references. I take that back. Maybe not given up on them, but I have to admit when I don't get them because I cannot fake laugh anymore. Also in studio.
Is it beyond you?
I think I just don't want to burn the calories. I would rather, instead of have a fake laugh, why not I just say, hey, what the fuck is going on here? And then get a real laugh on the next time around. You know what I mean? I love it when people break down references because I'm always the guy who's like, oh, every time that happens. But I digress. Once again, Krista, there she is on the couch.
That's good stuff.
All right. But yeah, so let's start talking about that, PJ. Let's talk about references because we've already jumped off on it.
Right.
I used to listen to, here's a personal story. I used to listen to the Adam Carolla show when it was on FM radio out here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they would never explain any of their references, and it was always maddening to me. And every once in a while, someone would make a callback and they would tell a story and flesh out one of these things. And I was always like, oh, finally, something but I hope that this show is not like that in some way because I love to over-explain shit. And obviously. But there are so many references out there. Everybody has, if it's anything, especially like Doctor Who or Star Wars, it's off my chart, man.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. We all know that you don't like Star Wars, so.
I don't even know at this point, I don't even know if I don't like Star Wars. I don't even know does that make sense? I don't know if I don't like it anymore. I'm just indifferent to it.
There's so much of it now.
I know, it's ubiquitous. It's like hating mustard. You don't have to eat it, but it's going to be everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many different kinds and flavors and shit.
Yeah, all of this, it's insane. I miss the days when I had a very finite thing to dislike. It was like the 3 movies and it was done. Now it's like a whole ocean and I have to just say I'm checked out.
It's too late to get into all of it now.
Right, yeah.
It's never too late. It's never too late.
It feels, but here's the thing, PJ, maybe you can help me. It feels like if you don't know Star Wars and don't like Star Wars and didn't grow up with Star Wars, getting into Star Wars now with this wide, deep ocean is like trying to swim the Mariana Trench, as your first swimming lesson. Where do you start is my question.
I mean, it's not hard to get into now. You just have to ask somebody who knows where you have to be willing to watch animated.
Let me ask you this. Are my gateway drugs necessarily the first chronologically produced movies?
No. 100% no.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the Marvel movies. There's a set order and they're not necessarily the order that they're coming out in.
No, because I feel like Star Wars is a little different because it's jumping around chronologically because the first 3 are actually the prequel to, or the sequels to what the prequels came out to be and the expanded universe, and it's a whole crazy messed up web.
The good thing about Star Wars now is that they have one person in charge of the flow of things, kind of like how Marvel had Kevin Feige. Marvel has one person who is really dictating and mixing and matching the shows together.
That is all it takes.
And he's been doing it for a while. So they
Yeah.
just recently like promoted him to that position. But yeah, he's had his hands in everything to help kind of guide stuff.
And that's what you need. You need continuity. You need someone to be, if not artistically at the helm, at least like steering the ship by direction alone.
Yeah.
And
I also just like that, like the show Mandalorian has like 7 different directors. It's not just one director. They let different directors do different episodes. So it adds a little bit of differences between each episode.
You know what's weird to me? Maybe you can pick out things like that. I'm not well versed in film enough to be like, oh, this feels like a different director, unless it's like a wild tone shift. Yeah, no, but I mean like let's say for instance, like for non-Star Wars fans, like The Office or like MASH, if you like that show, like every one of those was directed by a different person.
I think those are harder though, because there's nothing really like there's nothing in those episodes that's really definitive to stand out. Like if you said somebody like Robert Rodriguez, like one of his films, he's very known for specific things, and for shooting, for instance, like shooting scenes and stuff like that, that's his thing. He directed an episode of Mandalorian, and his episode was heavily shooting based. There was tons of shooting in comparison to any other episode, and all the shooting sequences were great, like well choreographed and stuff. And you could tell it was him because that's what he's known for. Like,
well, so let me ask you this, because like, if the director comes in and there's a bunch of shooting, like if that's not in the script, does the director come in and say, "I want a bunch of shooting"?
They probably build around that to make it so that there are shooting sequences that make sense, so they don't feel forced.
Directing is so strange to me because you have to go off of the director of a movie or a show or whatever gets a lot of unnecessary credit and blame, I think, because you've got writers and the actors have to put in their performance, but like if something goes wrong, it's always like, oh, bad direction.
Yeah.
But if you're an actor, are you going to do what feels unnatural? Like, what's a good movie where there's like no chemistry between any character?
That Color Out of Space.
Oh yeah.
Batman Forever.
Oh yeah, Nicole Kidman and Val Kilmer. Woof. Yeah, so there you go. That was a movie made for the money. Like no one was in it for the artistry or like the integrity. Val Kilmer and what's her name, Nicole Kidman, were there for the paychecks. So there was no chemistry. They weren't doing it for any passion.
Yeah.
So who do you blame? The director?
To an extent, yeah, because they make the final say on when they stop shooting scenes, and if they could just be like, oh well, let's just move on,
right? But if you're like a cog in the like, you can't. Not everybody can be like a Kubrick or a Spielberg or whatever. You have to get the shots you need, especially like if it's a big studio. Like Batman Forever is probably a perfect example because that was, we need money, essentially. No one was like, oh, I can't wait to tell this Batman story. Batman Forever felt like money, please.
Yeah. I mean, and also even if you go back to the Star Wars prequels, Natalie Portman tried to carry all those films and it didn't work out well in her favor.
Right. So then it's like, well, who do you blame? Here's the thing. I don't think you can blame a person involved. When money is the fuel behind the project, I don't think a person can fuck it up. I think it's fucked up from the root.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of messed up things about the prequel movies, so.
But barring that, because, Disney's not going to be like, yeah, let's stick to artistic integrity. If you have at least someone to keep things thematically consistent, that's all most people want.
Yeah, yeah. I think they have a right head about how they're going about things now, especially since Marvel's done so well following some kind of continuity between the films and just a consistent timeline.
Yeah, it was just it was such a weird situation that Marvel DC sort of reverse engineering the DC tried to be like different and edgy, and it totally went against type, and nobody liked it. It was like I don't know why Marvel and DC. Marvel did the thing that everybody liked, and DC is like the very controversial thing. But we've seen it a million times before, like when a volcano movie comes out with one studio, it comes out with another. When a Meteor movie comes out, it comes out with another. Very similar in timing and tone and theme and everything, and everybody eats both of them up. So I don't know what DC was thinking when they were going to get, like, they see all this money flowing into Marvel faster than they can count it, and they're like, we're going to go the other way. For the first time ever, that'll work.
It was also just dumb. Like, it's crazy because Marvel made base the story around probably the worst group in all their comics. Like, the Avengers are probably the least favorite of all the people in the comics. Like, everyone loves X-Men, and Fox just absolutely ruined that one.
I know, and that's the thing for me. I'm on the Avengers side of things because I did not like the X-Men because my first exposure to them was Fox, essentially. So my biggest touchstone with Marvel was the Avengers, and even a step further, the Avengers in the Ultimate Universe. You know what I mean? That whole side sphere.
Yeah.
Because everybody was so fleshed out and real, and it was so authentic. Like, the characters felt like actual people. I was like, whoa, for the first time ever, I'm engaged by a comic book. Because all the stuff I'd read before had been like removed a level, like movies in the 50s where no one can accept that we're human, so we all talk weird and act weird and sleep in separate beds. and the Ultimates for me was like that watershed moment where I was like, oh, whoa, Captain America is just like an old dude who got fast forwarded into the future. We got to keep his young body, and you get to see him struggle with it, and he gets to kick a little ass, and everybody goes like, oh, whoa. So I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but it was a good series.
G.I. Joe action set. Nerdy Joe not included.
That's true. Oh, yeah, we're talking about the Ultimates. Yeah, the Avengers. But yeah, so yeah. Because it's funny that you say that. You're like, everybody loves the X-Men, and me personally, I loved the Avengers because I think Captain America was the most appealing to me because he was so wholesome.
Oh, why? He has the biggest plot armor out of all the characters. It drives me crazy.
I know. Maybe not. Wholesome isn't the right word. Naive, maybe.
Yeah.
Because he should be naive, but he's totally up to date on everything. So he's like all of them are contradictions.
If they keep going along the way that they're going, we're going to get to a second Civil War. And I hope we go down that route because I like the second Civil War storyline a lot.
Really? Well, it's so crazy. I didn't even know they had a second Civil War.
Mm-hmm. And they have they're definitely leaning towards that way because all the new characters that we're getting now and how the transitions to like the new Captain America, we're going to get the new Thor. We're going to all of these things are going to happen.
Crazy.
And that's what happens in the comics right before Civil War 2. So
even in fantasy, war is the biggest moneymaker ever.
Yeah.
Like the first Civil War made so much money, I imagine. Like Planet Hulk. I enjoyed every second of reading Planet Hulk. And then World War Hulk came and was like, oh, whoa, war? Awesome. And I couldn't, it was so, let me put it to you this way. Planet Hulk is a story-rich experience that had me up and down as I read as the characters progressed. Whereas World War Hulk is literally just that. No character is advanced. Everybody, it's a revolving door of one after another of one of the people involved sending Hulk to the planet, them pleading their case, it finding no purchase, and them being destroyed.
Yeah.
And, why do we love it so much? I don't know.
People just like fighting. Civil War 2 is just going to be Minority Report, so I'm sure people will like that.
Right, and that's the thing, too. Like, when you have, the X-Men, that ilk of mutants or whatever, when you have literal psychics who can read everybody's mind, how are they not, at least feared or at least exploited by actual police to be like, hey, did this guy murder that dude?
Yeah.
Wouldn't a single provable psychic be utterly invaluable?
Right, fire all the people that do the poly tests and stuff.
You would never need to train another detective. It's like, okay, you send the uniforms in to scope everything out and clear everybody out and put up the tape. Then you send in the actual psychic to do actual psychic shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, mind blowing. But we have to live in that universe where it's like, oh no, mutants are bad. Where you would literally look past people with superhuman abilities for a clumsy racism metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know.
Like, how ridiculous. But that's the thing that kills me about the X-Men. I don't like the fact that they are just a clumsy racism metaphor.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's all sort of fatalistic as well, because like when you go to like the future past and you get to Bishop and Cable and all the future, and like it's the future is just as bad as like the Terminator future. That's another bummer, right?
Yeah, when there's X-Men versus Avengers is it like goes to shit too. So
yeah, and that's the thing. I think that's our two types of people. You have the Avengers who are on the lighter side
they're
of
Earth's
things.
They're also just Earth's guardians, essentially.
Right, but they're ostensibly living in the same world, right? Marvel houses both the X-Men and the Avengers, but how is it that the Avengers are revered while the X-Men are reviled?
I think it's just because they're mutants. It's literally just because they're mutants.
So if it's a genetic thing, that's the thing. It's like a clumsy racism thing that always hits me like a hammer, and I'm like, why? Like in any real life situation, it would be like the Avengers. They would be conscripted, and then you would have to deal with the things they're dealing with. You would eventually get over the fact that Wolverine, like, we get it. He's a different type of person, but what? Like, give up. Racism is like a tired thing, I feel.
I mean, it's Professor X is basically Martin Luther King, and Magneto is basically Malcolm X.
Right. Everybody is essentially, maybe that's why there's a certain age demographic too that maybe likes the X-Men, because I liked it at a certain point.
I just really
off.
like Gambit. Gambit's the one character that I resonate the most with.
So I've heard that before. So why is that? What about Gambit is so?
Because he's an anti-hero. He
So
started off as like a master thief.
Uh-huh.
And he kind of just fell into his position, but it's just the way that he interacts with all the other characters, where he's not just like this, he's not your typical good guy.
Right.
But he does things
like
because
Casey
he
Jones.
knows, yes, he's very much like Casey Jones.
He's accountable only to himself. Like, he'll come and work with the X-Men or whatever, but he's often like, I don't give a shit, right?
Yeah,
Essentially, but he has strong attachments to certain people within that universe.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he loves Rogue. Maybe not Rogue.
Yes,
but
he's the only person willing to deal with Rogue because Rogue can steal people's powers, and he's literally
nothing
just
but energy.
Yeah, he's like one of the strongest beings on the planet, and he's still willing to work with her, knowing damn well that she could just take his power.
Right, and isn't that so crazy? Like, it's the dynamic of the X-Men is very intense if you want to get into it, if you can get past the clumsy racism metaphor, because there's a bunch of dynamics going on here that are essentially like, you know, all these archetypes that get along, but still are shunned by society, and then are further shunned by each other. Like the whole dynamic between, like, let's say Scott Summers, Logan, and Jean Grey, right?
Yeah,
it's this constantly like, you know, I'm Scott Summers and Jean Grey's my best gal, but Logan comes in being God knows how old, by the way. Like, he could be 500 fucking years old. Jean Grey's like, what, in her 20s? And he rolls in like, oh, you want to get on this dick? And she goes, oh, I'm thinking about it. And he just causes some trouble. And then, you know. Yeah, and then Scott, you know, Cyclops has to pop in and be like, hey, man, my girl, my lady, I'm a, you know, zap, 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 that sort of thing. So, and that's the thing. It's so crazy that they're all persecuted by the outside world. And then inside their thing, like their sphere, the Xavier School for Gifted Mutants or whatever.
Yeah.
There's strife even between them. Like, all the mutants can't even get along because all the psychic mutants and all the weird body shape mutants, like, when does it end? Like, who is teaching? Like, I can only imagine Professor Xavier being like, fuck, It's like, what the fuck? Like, it's broken out there and it's broken in here. What the fuck am I doing?
You all are fucked.
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that most of the Avengers got their power very specific ways, where mutants a lot of times were born with it was kind of like a defect almost, but it gave them some kind of special ability.
And it also, like, 9 times out of 10 too, or at least in a lot of the backstories I see and hear, is like it hits around puberty for all these characters. Or they could be retconned. I don't know. But yeah, so is that it? Like, if you're a plucky, young, skinny boy who gets a super soldier drug and is now a superhuman, we all go, Yahoo! But when your balls drop at 14 or whatever, your first pube sprouts, and we find out that you can lift cars with your pinky, no problem, then we go, oh, gross. Look at this weirdo.
What happened to you?
Yeah, he uses his genes to get superpowers instead of like a synthetic chemical made in a laboratory. Ugh.
Yeah.
What? How can we have both of these people living in the same universe, like essentially around the block from each other? Because where is Xavier's school? It's like on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, it can't be that far from.
Yeah, they've all got to live in like Connecticut and New York, New Jersey, and shit. Like
one of the biggest events in Marvel happens in Connecticut.
Yeah, like the Fantastic Four with the Baxter Building. That's in New York.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, the Avengers building is in New York. It's based off an actual tower that's literally in New York.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. How is it that everywhere except where the X-Men exclusively pop up, right? What the fuck? Like, it's like everybody in New York or everybody behind their television set sees Thor and Captain America, and they go, woohoo! But like, if they're in a small town and a mutant pops and they find out they've got electricity or porcupine powers or they can see through walls, they go, how dare you with your genetic abnormality? How does that even exist in the same universe?
Look at the Netflix, all the Netflix shows that have come out. All those characters literally live in the city, in this right next to the tower where Avengers work, except they're just like out in the streets.
Makes it even more a stark implication. Because what the hell? Like, the Daredevil, he's obviously augmented. Jessica Jones, yada yada yada.
But Punisher is not. He's just a
vigilante.
He's just a badass.
That's the thing. Marvel also encapsulates a lot of things that have no super or psychological super normal powers whatsoever. Like the Punisher is just a guy with a bunch of guns. Like Dracula is in the Marvel universe. I have a trading card of a Marvel character, Dracula. Boom, in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Does Iron Fist have like powers, or is he just like supposed to be enlightened?
He does have powers. He has the power.
I would say technically he does have powers, but it's not like a mutant power. It's a power, like a learned power.
Yeah, he gets it from his chi from all the Tibetan training. And that's another thing. Like, that was neither a mutation, nor chemically, or radiologically, nor cosmically. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the thing. In the universe of Marvel, all are welcome except for those who do not choose it via chemical, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's weird, and I hope that now that Disney has full control over X-Men, that they do something proper with it.
Well, and then what's proper? Because you need someone to carry the dark side of the load, you know what I mean? And that's what X-Men has always been there for. Like, X-Men is always for the darker side of shit, because we say, okay, they're automatically the shit heels. We don't need to care so much about them. Let's give them difficult topics.
Yeah, but it's also like they have shown that certain characters from that series can do really well. Like, I mean, the movie Logan was great.
Oh, yeah, totally. And that's the thing. I think it's just a matter of artistic vision, because no matter how great a character, if money is the ignition, not an idea, not the idea of enjoyment, then who cares, right?
Did they make a Gambit movie, or is it not come out yet?
They were supposed. So there was rumors for the longest time that Channing Tatum was going to play it. Then there was no word, and then we found out Disney was going to buy them. So I'm sure that just went to the wayside.
Yeah.
And initially they wanted to cast one very specific person to play Gambit, and he said no. So they just never cast Gambit.
What's nuts is, like, I with so many hands in the pot, it's so easy to overlook raw talent. Like all those accidental superstars, those character actors who were given an accidental chance, who would never in a million years, because no one could have known. Like, but if that's the case, like your best interest is cranking out a long line of mediocrity. Why not go against type in that situation?
Yeah.
Like, it's like when Marvel went big, we got money. DC went the other way and it went shit. If your pattern is the shit, do the other thing. It works both ways, right?
It's crazy because most of DC's animated stuff is fantastic, whereas their live action stuff is just not good.
Because it's trying to please, how do you be the slave of many masters, essentially? Like, if you're trying to serve an endless army of heads who all are crying for something different from you, a single studio who can produce a single movie. Yeah. How? Right? But if the art is produced for itself, it stands on its own 2 feet. It wasn't produced for the express entertainment of at least 61% of this age group.
Yeah. Also, if I'm being honest, Superman is like the most lame character, period.
Right? I say that and everybody calls me an asshole.
He is 100% the most lame superhero.
Yeah, when I say that out loud, people shout me down. So I'm gonna praise you, PJ. Now is the time that we talk about how shitty Superman is as a fucking character. But here's the thing. I need to couch this first by saying that Superman was breaking a lot of molds, and before he was able to break the mold of, hey, let's just have a bunch of characters who all do different shit, we were all like, well, he does this and this and this and this and this. So he's kind of like a prototype that should have been thrown away after the new one came, but we kept him and added more spoilers and fins and mirrors and shit.
Yeah. I mean, he couldn't even fly initially. He just jumped really high.
Yeah. He jumped over buildings with a single bound. That was his thing. He was a Superman. He wasn't a literal god.
Yeah. Now he is a literal god.
Yeah. And how interesting is that?
It gets boring because like he doesn't really have his weakness is some material from an off planet that people occasionally use.
And that's his problem. When obviously all cartoon characters and comic book characters are immortal. We know that. We've seen them die hundreds of times. But why do yourself then the disservice of making them truly invulnerable to everything except one thing, so that has to be the one thing that you can never not talk about? Holy fuck. Like, the Hulk can be ripped apart in any number of ways. I have seen him do a crazy number of things, change multiple times into different colors and yada, 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 because he has room to grow, because no one was like, hey, the only thing the Hulk can do is this. Clank, set in stone. But Superman got married to Kryptonite, and we got fucked out of a lot of content. Non-Kryptonite related content, I mean. There's been a lot of Kryptonite related content. I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah. He's definitely one of the more. DC has they're just so dark all the time. I think it's just always so dark.
Well, it's not only dark, but it's like, because dark is not necessarily bad. Like the Ninja Turtles comic is dark, but it's not fatalistic, and it's not necessarily a dead end. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, dark in tone feels to me like a noir detective story where you know that it's like a smoky atmosphere and things are grim and there's danger all around, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. It feels like with DC, it's always just this fatalistic, like look at everything they do. Everybody jumps to the future. We jump to the future and we say, okay, Batman Beyond. Here's Bruce Wayne. He's now a decrepit old fart who is still dedicated to protecting a city that refuses to get better. Holy shit. Are you kidding me? Like, don't do that. Like when the X-Men did the same thing. They went dark in the wrong way with the Days of the Future Past, where everybody is getting annihilated by Sentinels, and it was fatalistic. Dark is fun. Fatalistic is not.
Yeah.
Like whatever. I feel like all I talk about now is the fucking Ninja Turtles movie, but let's bring it up again. That movie is dark, right? It's literally dark and figuratively dark.
Yeah.
But it's fun and it's lighthearted. It's dark in tone, but light in heart. Like, you know that nobody is going to die. It's the Ninja Turtles movie, but it's grungy and it's got that atmosphere and that attitude.
Ugh, there's that one scene though that I always think about when you talk about it, when Leo's next to what's his nuts in the
Raph.
tub, and I'm like, and I always get so sad because I'm like, I know he's not gonna die, but just like he's so sad and
Right, but that's the watershed moment of the film. You
Right.
need that.
right.
And
Yeah,
if
it hits me too every time I rewatch the movie.
it has to. And that's what art does if it's made for the sake of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because why not? Like, that movie was true to form. Like, it did everything the way it should, against all odds. Sometimes it works out. For me, at least. I can't say for everybody. It's not a perfect movie for everybody. But for me, it's the goddamn perfect movie.
Yeah.
Because it's got all of the gross movements that we know in society without getting bogged down in too many details. Like Casey Jones and April O'Neil, two one-dimensional characters to each other, but in the end they kiss and we go, oh, ta-da. Like, it's fucking great. Because it's dark in tone, not in, like, intent.
Yeah.
X-Men feels like it meant to make you feel bad that Saturday morning, you know?
Yeah.
when a dude who's half robot comes to you from the future and he's like, oh, you're my dad and everything is fucked and there's nothing you can do to stop it, that ruins your Cheerios, right?
Yeah.
But when you watch Spider-Man, it's just a guy cracking wise in a spider costume. And he's literally like in the next zip code, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, Spider-Man is not far from them at all.
No, and like, imagine, like, in like within spitting distance, we have like Wolverine, Cyclops, Rogue, what's her name? The Star Spangled Banner, Jubilee, all dealing with like the Dark Phoenix saga, where all of humanity hangs in the balance, and Spider-Man's like, well, gotta get to history class like in the same day.
He's like waving from the
the
rooftops. at
fuck?
them.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, hey guys, I'm here for math, and meanwhile, like Wolverine and everybody are in the Blackbird rolling around shooting fire and shit. And Hulk is like taking a crap because he's Bruce Banner at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's all happening in the same universe. And if you open up and think of it a little, it's so weird to think of that.
Yeah, it really is.
Because, like, conceivably, I don't know if you've read this, but I'll give you a little hint of this or that. In, like, Earth X, it takes place, again, in the future, but a realistic future where, like, the broad strokes of it are somebody released the Terrigen Mist upon the Earth, and now everybody has mutant powers. Like, nobody is special because everybody is special. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, Spider-Man, Bruce Banner, they're all has-beens. They have no need for a secret identity anymore, so they just hang out as normal dudes. And that's where you're headed. Even in a everybody is a superpowered society. Eventually, Spider-Man is going to get old and want to retire, and he'll let things slip, and he'll start giving out little tidbits, and there'll be a deathbed confession like, I was Spider-Man. Bleh.
But that's why they have all the different, like, there's like, what? At least 7 or 8 different Spider-Men now?
Oh, yeah. They're like, Marvel has so many universes, but in a world where you can create as many as you want.
They have the they're 100%, and they're doing all the multiverse stuff now. So everyone's starting to
Which
see.
is brilliant.
The Loki show is really starting to like drill into people's minds all the different universes.
Let me run this up your flagpole, because like we all have been in a situation where you were watching a favorite sitcom, all right, and then one episode goes crazy batshit off the rails. And at the end, the rug's pulled out from under you and it's all a dream, right? Like, that's essentially what it boils down to.
Yeah.
That was, like, essentially the artists behind it wanting to try something different, but having to stick to continuity. When you get to control every universe by literally snapping your fingers and being like, well, in this universe, everybody's dicks are upside down, or whatever the detail is. Like, now every episode in that universe gets to be that weird dream.
Yeah.
So it's like a fucking, but the other
they have a
flip side of
noir Spider-Man. There's literally a Spider-Man who's just a noir detective.
The flip side of the coin is that market is easily watered down because Infinite is it in itself. And
Yeah.
when everybody now has like, because you could literally tailor a Spider-Man to every person on the planet and more.
Yeah.
So it's easy to water it down.
Spider Pig.
Right.
They've got-
And that's what I'm saying. Like everybody will pick their favorite universe, and I don't think there should be more than like 6 choices necessarily, because it's like what Mountain Dew did. I bring them up all the time too, because they're assholes. Like Mountain Dew had one hot green antifreeze colored drink, right? And they were like, fuck it. We need to appeal to every color of every bow, right? So they went black, white, red, blue, different blue, different greens somehow, 2 greens, all the colors, and then they made up a couple. But the fan base was built on the green, and then they diluted their own fans, and now they have a scattering army who's like, I used to like Mountain Dew, but then it like threw up a rainbow in my face, and I moved to Pepsi or something.
Yeah.
It's all hypothetical, of course. I mean, that's what I would do. Oh man, where do we want to go from there, PJ? Like, we've dissected the Marvel Universe. I feel too much for most people's comfort.
I don't know.
I could do it all day. Here's the thing. If you can look into anything like inquisitively and fun, like anything you can jump into will keep you occupied for hours. You'll never get to be bored again, as long as you don't care about the outcome, right? Because we can speculate about the Marvel Universe all day, and literally it doesn't matter because they're comic book characters.
I love that X-Men video game we played.
Which one?
Is it Ultimate
game?
Alliance?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was
I love
not necessarily X-Men, but it was Marvel.
Oh.
But the X-Men
Yeah,
were
I mean there
involved.
are X-Men in it. There's Avengers in it. There's a little bit of everything.
It's the whole Marvel Universe, which is weird because I imagine what when you put that team together, right? It's like Wolverine, Cyclops, it's like Captain America and the Hulk, and like the 2 X-Men look at the 2 Avengers and they're like, does everybody treat you like shit? And they're like, no, everybody loves us. And they go, what the fuck? Groundbreaking, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ultimate Alliance, both of them were great. Even like the first one, as rudimentary as it is, still awesome.
Yeah.
There was another X-Men themed one that came out, like Legendary something or other in the same vein. Not as good to me.
Legendary.
I forget. It was like the same basic model as the Ultimate Alliance built, but it was just X-Men characters. Maybe it was based around Apocalypse or Magneto. I didn't, like I said, I don't like the X-Men, so I did not take special notice. I only recognized the similar mechanic and then moved on.
Huh.
But hey, maybe I'm also making this up. I am not infallible, so who knows?
I can only think of like one other game, but I don't even remember the name of it.
Well, let's talk about the game that I love more than any. Hulk Ultimate Destruction. Dear God, do I love that game. I haven't played it in 20 years, and I still get pains for it.
What was it on? I don't think I've ever actually played it.
It was on every system. I had it for Xbox. I've got an old GameCube I'm trying to find a copy of it for, but it is harder to find than a hen's tooth. So I look and look and look. I have... Yeah, it's been a real pain in the ass because I want to play it on my old system because that's what, why not, if you're going to live in nostalgia, why not play the whole roller coaster out?
Can you find it on the Pi?
Yeah, but I'm not good at anything beyond, like, let's say PlayStation. It gets too complicated for me at this point in my life, and I don't have the hours to throw into it at this point. But had I the time, I would be playing Hulk Ultimate Alliance. And also, if I unlock that door, you could say goodbye to me for a solid week. I will be from my car after work to the bedroom, door slam, and it's just me laughing my ass off as I power, like, elbow drop onto old ladies from the tops of buildings.
You don't want to play some Superman 64?
Hell to the no.
That is one of the worst games ever created.
Yeah.
It's... like, there are some things you can say that are subjectively bad or whatever. That is objectively the most frustrating experience that anybody's had on the N64.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
No way around it. Oh my God. But they were still like, But it wasn't though. Like I want to say, like Nintendo was like still like, oh, the N64 were new, but they had such a tight hold on their IP from day one. Like, how did they let that slip by?
I don't know. I mean, the Nintendo 64 has still some of my favorite games on it. So,
right, which proves that like the mechanics are what matter, not the graphics.
Yeah, it's also the experiences too. That game just doesn't offer anything. It doesn't have good mechanics. Doesn't have a good experience.
It's got nothing.
It literally has nothing going for it.
Right. It all has to work cohesively because if one part falls off, it feels not good.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like, for instance, if I was to go back nowadays and play GoldenEye,
oh yeah,
which was
awful
like, it's
right?
GoldenEye was a staple. The whole reason that shooters blew up to where they are now on consoles was because GoldenEye literally got everybody into shooter games that didn't own a PC.
Yeah.
So, but go back and play that game now, and you will be shocked to find out that it is horrible.
Oh my God.
To play.
Here. You want to know a similar, although identical experience, save for a few details. I played umpteen zillion hours of Twisted Metal 2. I can't tell you how much time I wasted on that game. I beat it again and again and again and again. I even videotaped each ending, right? I fucking loved and knew that game front, back, left, right, and center. Picked it up on the Pi like last year and was completely dumbfounded at how backwards we now see that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what the fuck? Like everything now seems so intuitive. And back then it was a brand new controller and they're like, I guess this does this. And it was like, it almost feels like when you play something made, let's say after 2000, feels like it's intuitive. You pick it up and you go, okay, shooters all feel like this, racers all feel like this. In the early days, they were like, I don't know. Like somebody in the office put on a blindfold and like, okay, throw a dart for which button will be acceleration. Now brake.
Yeah.
Now missile. And it's just like, all right, we've got our thing mapped out. And then they did it like 9 more times and gave them all to you in the options, each one more hideous to use than the last.
It's also, that was before analog sticks were more commonly used.
Oh.
So you were just using a D-pad to play like games that involved driving around, which just did not control well.
So yeah, that's another, like, that's the thing. I was only talking about the right side of the controller. We haven't even gotten over to the left, PJ. Dear God. When we get over to the left and it's like just the D-pad, man, and you're trying to drive a car in a PlayStation where there is a 3D environment. No longer are we on the NES and the SNES. This is full-blown 3D. Now trying to grapple with that as an adult, having full 3D movement in my real life and in most video games is now incredibly frustrating.
If I remember correctly, the analog stick did not come out until very late in PlayStation's life, and it was Ape Escape was the first game that utilized.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because it came in a package with Ape Escape.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy that like such a huge, and now that we look back, if you were to go back and use one of those actual controllers, the placement of the sticks are the most inefficient place ever. Like now each one is offset to sort of cater to what you need, and like it'll be above a D-pad and below some buttons so you can grab it nice and easy. Having to go right to the middle makes you feel like you're pushing the world's tiniest shopping cart every time you have to use those goddamn things.
PlayStation still does that. Their analog sticks are still in the same spot they've always been.
I know. I don't get it. Like it's so confusing.
So I don't mind it, but I tell people all the time, if I'm playing a game that, especially shooters, if I play a console shooting game, I have to play it with either the Xbox controller or the Nintendo Switch controller, because it's basically just an Xbox controller.
Yeah, there's something about being offset that makes it click for most. Maybe not most.
It's just natural. Your thumb is, without having to really stretch it at all, it's literally sitting on the D-pad for the left side.
And especially like, because if you think about it too logically, like every game you're going to be breaking down, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be holding a gun. And when you're going to be holding a big gun, your hands are going to be off, access of one another too. So it just feels like more natural for shit like that. And when you drive, you don't, put your hands directly apart from each other at 3 and 9.
Yeah.
You like to loosey-goosey it, you know what I mean?
Sometimes use your knee.
Yeah, you knee it. Get a little hip action on there. Who knows? But yeah, that's the thing. If you're in love with the PlayStation controller, you know, I can't dissuade you from it. But for my hands, it always feels like having the sticks right there in the center feels so. Ugh.
Yeah, I will say though, especially with the new PlayStation, it definitely feels better. They're progressively getting better even without moving the analog sticks.
And you know what's weird is like I'll get your opinion on this. The GameCube controller, yay or nay? Did you like it?
I think it was a great controller.
I did too. So why were they able to like nail it then? And it was only one analog stick and that tiny little pathetic C thing.
Because there wasn't Nintendo after the N64 just decided to really kind of play by their own beat and just really lean into that. Like they really leaned into it. So they're not like trying to cater to the audiences who would really want the analog sticks to be in specific positions. Now, don't get me wrong, because now you have the Nintendo Switch that has the Switch Pro controller is basically the Xbox controller.
Right. I think
so, but like for a while, they just kind of like focused on you're going to have to hit the A button a lot. So we're going to make that giant.
Yeah. And I get, because they built it around use, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
They built everything that like the biggest buttons are the ones you use the most and they fall off of there. And that like maybe that's why it was so intuitive, but you know, their problem up until like the motion controls and stuff was never like controllers or whatever. Cause even like the SNES and the NES, even though they were way simpler and like very rudimentary when you think about it, still comfortable, right?
Yeah. I mean, the SNES controller had bumpers on it, so...
Yeah, I use one all the time on my Pi. Like, I fucking love that thing. Like, it's one of the most comfortable controllers outside of my Xbox one.
Yeah.
But, you know, Nintendo has its issues that we don't have to get into because people love hearing me talk about that. But yeah, like, it's funny that each of us... And then here's the thing. Like wherever you stand on this, I think keyboard and mouse is completely backwards ass crazy, right? But there are people out there who tell me it's the only way to play.
I mean, 90% of the games that I play nowadays are on PC, so
yeah, and then all the games I play, if I play them, are on PC, but I'll always plug in the controller because I am too dim-witted to have my hands on separate objects.
I can't do it. And even like the WASD, I can't.
You get used to it. It's believe me, I was not good at it at first. To be honest, I'm one of the weirder people when it comes to PC gaming because I can't hit a lot of buttons with my left hand. I have to do it with my right, but my right's on a mouse. So how do you do that? I have a mouse that has 15 buttons on it, so that my thumb can hit most of the buttons that I would need to hit.
Isn't that crazy? Like there's no set standard anymore. Like it's not like, oh, use a keyboard and mouse. No, now I use a keyboard and my mouse has 47 buttons on it. My keyboard's actually 3 keyboards, and it's actually more of like a surrounding joystick sort of like you remember that game Armored Core, that sort of shit.
Oh yeah, that thing was
so
crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Where do you draw the line? Because if everybody looks down their nose at me to the controller user because I have less control than the keyboard and mouse user who has less control than the keyboard and insane mouse user who has less control than yada 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 yada.
Yeah.
Like whatever. I guess I'm just at the bottom of the totem pole, but without me you fuckers would fall over. I'm the base. I'm holding that shit down with my controller over there. If I'm not there, where are you?
I'm just used to everything. I'm playing a little bit of everything most days, so
if I were able to give it some time, I'm sure I could pick up keyboard and mouse. It's just that I don't have.
It's more of a shoot. It's better for shooting games. That's really what it is.
Yeah, and my thing is
you can
driving.
fine tune it. So
yeah, my thing is driving. I like the experience of getting in a bus or a stunt rally car or whatever's got 4 wheels, maybe 2 sometimes. I've not played anything with 1.
No unicycle simulator.
There's no unicycle simulator as of
Yet.
yet. But I'm anxiously waiting for a taxi simulator that keeps telling me it is coming soon, just like that beautiful Ninja Turtles ripoff that is never coming, I've decided.
It's coming.
Coming soon should be 4 months or less, right? Let's just say that. What is coming soon? Tell me what soon is, and then I will agree to what soon is. Or I will say it is coming late. Fuckers.
It's coming eventually.
Yeah, don't say early 2021 in the middle of June. Because what is early? Early in the morning? Are you going to release it at 6 a.m. at the end of June? What's going on?
I will be curious to see if that game is going to release this year. It'll release in September or October.
But whatever. Like
it will not release it. It would be crazy to try to release by the end of October or into November because now they're going up against like massive titles and that's dumb. So
well, but here's the thing: they're in a different arena. Like the person who's
They
going
are.
to go get Call of Duty is not going to be the same guy who's going to get the new Ninja. Like I'm going to be the Ninja Turtles guy, whereas my brother will be the Call of Duty guy. Neither of us will buy each other's game.
they don't want to confuse the parents. That's more what that's about.
Whatever, man. Like, but here's the thing: like, when it is released in a year's time, and everybody's forgotten about it, and is joined, the long line of other art that exists in a line of art that exists, then what? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's going to devalue itself, but don't dangle something in front of me and keep saying almost, because in no time, don't keep building the suspense. Because I know that the suspense will ebb. And if you build up the suspense too much, it only is going to serve to injure you. Because the longer you wait, the more you expect. And the more you expect, the higher the expectation gets.
Yeah. It's a lot of thing that that's an issue that gaming studios have over the past year because of COVID. Their time frames are all over the place.
Well, even before that, the higher the expectation gets, the longer you wait. So let's take this. I'll give you a real life example. I did not expect this show to happen tonight, but I reached out and it happened. But I've already told everybody on the Facebook page that they ain't getting shit tomorrow. But when they hear this, when I say tomorrow, it's actually in 2 days. And when they hear it, it's actually today when you're actually hearing it.
Whoa.
Yeah. Boom. Head explosion.
But I put myself behind the 8 ball because I was like, you know what? No show. I painted myself into a corner. And then I was like, well, what if? Spoke too soon. That's what I'm telling you. Plans only get you fucked. Unless they're incredibly bare bones. And mine was so bare bones and it still fell apart. It was one bone. It was one goddamn bone, PJ. I said no episode Friday. No episode today when you're listening. Sorry about it, Facebook people. No episode. One bone. And I lied. Here we are. You're listening to a lie. This episode is a lie.
Stop listening right now. It's not real.
Oh my God.
You're in a dream.
Yeah, and not for nothing, but people are loving the new me. Holy fuck.
Every time I pick up my phone during the day and I only have notifications on for your Discord. And I for some reason I just haven't shut them off yet. And I look down at my phone and it's just like a wall. And I'm like, I feel like I'd have to read a book to catch up on what just happened in here today.
Would, yeah.
So that
Even before this show started, I was sitting at my computer and I'm just seeing posts after post and I'm like, Jesus, what is going
So,
on?
PJ, then, now, that is take that feeling, that gut feeling, that concrete feeling you have in your gut. That is what I feel when you say, watch Star Wars. Right? That is the connection we are making. My Discord server is literally nothing but a tangled web of bullshit that I created. It is the Marvel Universe. It is the Star Wars universe. It is all universes. It's all worthless, pedantic garbage, and it's all made up.
It's the Dervis universe.
Yeah, it's the Dervis verse.
Yeah.
But that's the great thing
but that's
about
like
it, too.
my day. I'm like running around all day, pop it open, and I'm like, oh my God. It's like, there are 25 new messages in here. And I'm like, what is going on?
It's so funny because in my mind, and obviously because I only see one perspective, in my mind, everybody is completely like everything is turned off, all the notifications. No one's even watching. So I feel in my heart of hearts, I am just texting Krista. Like when we talk, it always surprises the fuck out of me when someone joins the conversation and I go, whoa. I forget that it's literally not just texting my wife. Because I just assume that nobody's going to be like, oh yeah, I'll sit here and read this. Ha ha ha. Just kidding. I've got a life, right? So it's funny when people do float in though, because it's like maybe having a conversation at a cafe with my wife and anyone can walk up and be like, hey, can I talk too?
I overheard this.
Yeah. And which is fine. I love it.
Yeah, because then it helps me out because sometimes I don't know what to say.
Yeah, and here's another, like, I'm going to stop making decisions. It's the stupidest thing in the world. Because I was like, oh, you know what? This Discord is going nowhere. It's causing more frustration and more agony and more whatever. It's more than I want to deal with negatively wise. So I said, today I'm going to kill it. And I said I was going to kill it right after I found out that I could change other people's nicknames forcibly because I own the server, right?
Yeah.
So I changed Adam's name to Ronald McRadio. So the plan was I was going to wait for him to show up, notice it, make a witty comment, maybe have a little back and forth, then poof, it's gone. No more problem for anybody. And I'll just go back to texting my wife via an actual texting app, right? But today of all days, when I make that decision, this comes out of the woodwork and blows my mind for 4 hours. And then Randy, he's like, oh, P.S. I have 6 hours or whatever it was to throw at your ass. And I'm like, what? So now what do I do?
Keep it.
You can't get rid of I think Discords are like the best places for communities, I think, right now. So
I would tend to agree with you because they're so active and alive. Like I can see why people hate Facebook. I can see why people hate Twitter. And I can see why people hate Instagram because they are literally moving at the speed of smell. Like you have to wait for someone to get a whiff of your post, look at it, and then respond, right?
Yeah.
But with Discord, it's a live pattern happening,
It's just an open chat
IRL.
room.
Yeah.
And that's real social media, right? Like when everybody can jump in whenever they want or stay out of it as long as they want. And you're not limited to 140 characters.
It's just constant live AOL chat rooms.
Right.
Yeah, which is what it should be. Like because if you get if you give someone enough time for a comeback, they'll drive themselves crazy with it. And in a live conversation, after the fact, you can go, oh, I should have said this. But like on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, you post something, then you give people this blank canvas and space to craft any sort of weird thing they want and give it to you.
Yeah.
But it's not in real time. So it feels like, oh, that was a really cutting, biting remark. But then you realize and unpack it that it took them 9 hours. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe they saw it and then bam, it hit them. Or maybe they saw it and they're like, oh, I got to come back to this. But if I don't touch it, no one will know I was here. It's very deceptive. Yeah. But the Discord is a beautiful place where if you want to jump in, you can. And if you don't, it is gone. So you cannot sit and think and try to plot.
Yeah.
It's alive. It's alive. Oh, man. But yeah, it is. I got to stop asking questions because it's doing almost nothing, I feel, except burn my entire day away when I've got other things to do sometimes. Like it's been a blast, but I feel like at first I was like, why am I doing this? Because nobody cares. And then now, in one day, PJ, in one day, I went from why am I doing this? Nobody cares to like now too many people care. And I feel like it's a burden. And it went from 0 to 2. What a massive. And here's the thing, too. This is all just weird personal experience I'm going to relate to you. But after I stopped giving a shit, I started throwing my own 2 cents on like YouTube videos and stuff. Not mean stuff, but like just being like, hey, here's my 2 cents on whatever. Here's a joke. Here's a whatever. And one thing I said on Twitter, like it blew up. Like I usually get 1 retweet, if that. If someone looks at it, they go, oh, nice, heart or retweet or whatever. Like Kayla's good for one. She's our greatest fan, our best friend and our greatest moderator. But then something happened and I responded to somebody and it blew up and it was getting dozens and dozens of retweets and likes and follows and shit. And I was like, whoa, no. That's not why this was here.
I want to delete this now.
No. Yeah, whoa. But no, I was doing it for like the jollies. Like, because now it feels like now on this side of the coin, it feels like all the attention is like, Whereas before.
It's like the time that I New Jersey and Connecticut's Twitters were arguing about pizza. What? And I jumped in and responded on New Jersey's and was like, hey, I live in you, but you're wrong. Your pizza's not as good as Connecticut's. Mm-hmm. And that comment was just like hundreds of people like liking. And then the amount of replies. And I'm like, oh my God.
It's bonkers, right? Yeah. And you literally will never know what will set off a mountain from your molehill.
Yeah.
Like your pizza comment, my comment was just like on you probably may follow them as well. There's a thing called Wholesome Memes. It's just a positive little stream of memes that I recently unfollowed because I realized it seems like it kind of fosters codependency, but we can talk about that later. Anyway, I commented on one of their ones that I was like, oh, that's cute. And I was like, yeah, everybody be you. Everybody's cool and you're cool and everybody blah, blah, blah. Like, basic uplifting stuff that I meant, but was generic.
Yeah.
And that's when it like exploded. Everybody's like, oh my God, my day. You saved it. And I was like, whoa, no, I didn't. If Twitter saved your day, please take control. Yeah. Right? I don't want that power. It's daunting. So I'm saying, man, all these conversations, I am now worried that I'm gaining enough persuasive tact that people are going to start changing their minds, and I do not want that. It's fun. It's fun to dick around and have fun with people, but I don't want anybody changing their mind to be like, yeah, you're right. And then I have all friends who are just like me, and it's boring.
Yeah. No, you always have... I think Discords promote good communication because I'm in a few different ones that are like fairly active with people talking every day, and like they're constantly just people talking back and forth to each other, and yeah,
it's crazy. It's like the Acropolis or the marketplace in ancient Arabia. Like it's where common folk come together to talk about real shit and not use fake language, or at least it should be, in my opinion. A Discord you have to be invited into, right? Like there's no other way in.
Yeah, I mean, people can put an open invite out, but you still have to click on the invite. You pretty much have to be searching for what you're trying to get to.
Right. So in that itself, it should be its purest form of expression. Like I don't want to ever censor the Discord. I don't like when Keith does weird, gross shit or posts furry shit, all the stuff that I, could find repulsive. I let it go because if I start going, hey, that is where the line is, then what? Then I only offer my dick to get stomped on. If I'm the enforcer of the rules and everybody loves to break rules, I offer my dick to repeatedly get stomped. So if I say, hey, no rules, just right. I pull the old Australian Outback Steakhouse fucking slogan. I say, no rules, just right. Everybody acts like decent humans. I mean, so far, something could change at the drop of a hat, but so far, everybody has been acting as appropriately as expected around other human beings.
Yeah, it's just a good place to foster communities. I
wish your Discord was more active while we're on this topic. I wish yours was more content rich. I want to go over there and agitate sometimes, but I know I'd be the only one doing it. And I'd be like, who the fuck is this guy? Get him the fuck out of here, PJ.
We're in the middle of writing we're finally writing another thing literally right now. So because we're both playing. Yeah, we're both playing a game at the same time, and there are two different storylines that you can play, like two different characters you can play as, and the story is completely different depending on the character you choose to play. But they interweave a bit, like throughout the story. So me and him are at about the same point in the game. So we've been kind of like chatting about like where the story differences are as we like write through it. But yeah, it's I said rather than us play both way through differently, how about we each play a different way? And then talk about it from our point of view.
Yeah, feel it out.
Yeah.
if you're open to it, I have a request for some content then, because if you're
Okay.
going to like play no save, let's go freewheeling. I would love to see like a critical analysis or at least a your perspective view of the Dungeons and Dragons one shot.
Okay.
Like maybe not necessarily like in a critical analysis, but like a narrative breakdown maybe or something, just to see like, because I know what my experience was. I've never been a DM, and like that insight I would find appealing to know. Obviously, all the information in the world wouldn't change my mind, but it'd be interesting to see another perspective and be like, oh, now I'm more appealed to be a DM or I'm less appealed to be a DM.
Yeah, I mean, when you DM something, it's really just you kind of have like ground rules and like things that you write down, so you know like what's in your world that you have available to you, what you need to do, but then also willing to change when things don't go according to your own plan, because you may have a plan and people may screw that plan over, and you're like, shit, I need to think of something very quickly and change.
So I would also like to refine my request to not only like maybe part critical analysis, part emotional reaction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how you are feeling. And let's peek behind the curtain, because no one's ever going to, maybe listening to this will know what happened that day.
Yeah.
But there was some friction between the humans involved that was interesting to me. And that is what I am digging at. You know what I'm saying? I would like to see what you were thinking, not only as the dungeon master having to carry these characters, but also experiencing the tension of a personal dynamic of that nature.
Yeah. I can definitely write something up from it, because it's like I talked to everybody about it afterwards, because people were like, some people wanted to do more like continuous ones, and I'm like, I can, but I'm like, I need a solid group of people who are willing to do it on this amount of times. Like, I don't want to, if I'm gonna flesh out a story, like we've got to really go into it. I said, otherwise I'm not gonna do it, because it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to really like build that. So I don't want to do it for nothing.
Right. And you're going to have to look at the cast of characters involved, aka the humans, and that dynamic, and be like, is this something that has a stable enough foundation to carry itself again, let alone a continuous thing? And so that's why I'd be interested. Like, I could probably pick your brain off air, but I'm sure, I don't want to say I'm sure, I don't want to sound egotistical, but I have a hunch yours truly may have come up casually.
No, everybody, like, for the most part, everybody was newer or like still green to that type of like game.
Well, there was
style.
one person in particular that I felt was very, because like I feel like first let's unpack that, PJ, because you're like, everybody there was green. However, one dude knew like literal spells and was like using tactics that were beyond amazing. Then there was someone who was so tired with my idiotic performance that gave me the impression that like this was a person of experience. I felt like everybody there came with a way stronger footing than me. You know what I mean? Well,
so like one of the guys who played he got like super into the idea of playing. So like before when we first announced that I was going to play, he had never played yet. By the time
the wizard, just for my reference.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I figured it was.
So he had never played before, and then he jumped into people's Discords and started playing and doing like combat simulators for stuff like that. So by the time he played with me, he had a good footing on how to like play.
He had a goddamn doctorate. Like if you had said to me, how long do you think he's played? I would have told you since he was 12. Because like he like basically was off doing his own thing, like totally independent, and like checked in the whole time though, like constantly aware, constantly in control.
Yeah, but it's also because he was playing into his character's backstory. So because it was a one shot, you can't really get into characters' backstories. But he had told me his backstory. That was how his character was.
Right, but so that's the thing. Like he went from green to hardened.
Yeah, he knew what he was. He knew what he was doing, and when I realized that when we were fighting, I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that I give him a run for his money because he's been playing. So I wanted people to have a good time and not have to stress too much. But then I'm like, okay, now I need to make him stress a little bit because he's going to be like, what the hell?
Dude was pulling out spells and arcane knowledge and summoning minions and shit. And I'm like, okay, so we get, like, I get it, dude. Like, you're the expert. Come to find out, like, I kind of figured he was that person who didn't know, but then popped into it because he had that feel.
Yeah.
But that's what was so great about him. I loved it because he was so at ease and at home because he accepted for everything for what it was. When all of the conflict that arose outside of the game was like not accepting what was going on in the fantasy.
Yeah.
Which is so weird. The not accepting what was happening in a fantasy was leaking into reality and causing weirdness.
Yeah.
It was an incredible experience is what I'm getting at, PJ, and I want to thank you for it because it was awesome.
I love playing D&D. I miss being able to play it in person. And because I used to have a campaign that I played for literally a few years, and it was quite fun. We used to play like every 2 or 3 weeks on average, and it was just. And when we played, though, we would play for like 4 or 5 hours in a night.
It does feel like it's one of those games where you need face to face. Like doing it online is fine, especially when you're spread all over the country like we are. But it's when you use your imagination, it's got to be in front of somebody. Because if you don't feel the energy of the people around you and are able to dissolve yourself into the communal enjoyment, then there's this weird electronic disconnect where everybody's this tiny little square where you can be like, oh, I'm going to go take a piss. You zoom off and you like, it's easier to check out.
Yeah.
IRL, face to face, you're there, you're invested.
Yeah, plus you have the map on the table.
Yeah,
you've got people people can play
rituals.
music, and you've got the miniature. People got the miniatures, and you got the actual dice that everyone can see when you're rolling it. And
yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's all needed. Like you need the ritual, you need the props, you need the diagrams, you need all of that to dissolve yourself into the moment. And so unless you're really invested in the now and you don't need all the trappings, online, it seems, is difficult for some.
Yeah, for sure.
And I can't blame them because how can you not? Like you're staring at a tiny little box with all these other little tiny little boxes in it, trying to pretend you're whatever, a goblin or a wizard or a...
Like I said, Rob was the only person in that group who had played in person before, so...
Yeah, Rob, we can talk about Rob, but later. Tell you what, let's start wrapping it up. I feel like this has been an excellent episode, at least from this perspective. Why don't we wrap it up with some staff recommendations like we always do? I feel like everything we do is a recommendation, or everything we did, rather, on this show is a recommendation. But maybe you got something else you want to recommend our audience?
I will recommend the game that I'm playing that I'm going to be reviewing, which is Scarlet Nexus. It came out like a week ago.
Okay.
It's very much like if somebody that's listening likes anime, this is exactly where you'd want to play. This is a very anime game. Like it is very much an anime.
Yeah, you've been taking that one hard to the vein, I see, lately.
Yeah, it's great. The combat is really different, and I think that's why I like it. Like the story is fairly good so far, but the combat is so much fun in this game.
You know, there are so many things that can go wrong with the game, and all of them can be forgiven if one of two things clicks. The story or the combat. It doesn't even necessarily need to be both. Like, I don't know what the story is for Mother Russia Bleeds. I know the combat clicks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A shitty fighting mechanic is way easier to digest if the story is good. And I can overlook a shitty story if I get to snap a dude's neck like with 2 fingers and be like, you know, visceral.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get where you're coming from there. I just picked up a game. It's been on my wish list, so I've gotten like 3 seconds of actual FaceTime with it. But it's in my vein, so I'm going to give it a tentative half recommendation. Was it Absolute Drift? Yeah, Absolute Drift. It's on sale on Steam, like for whatever, 40% off because of the summer sale and yada. It's a revolving thing. But driving is my thing, and controllers are my bag if you're going to be driving. So I think, because I got it was like Drift Zen that was like free on the Epic Store that Keith told me about, which by the way, thank you. Also good. But driving and drifting are two different things. It's like unicycling versus bicycling or tricycling.
Is it like isometric view, behind the car view? What is it?
It's some of them. Okay, so some of them. Drift is saying like the camera sort of shifts and sort of flows around you. Mm-hmm. Where I believe absolute drift is like it's always behind you and you're going, basically a third person over the shoulder essentially.
Yeah.
But drifting is a hard thing to do because if you drift in real life, you need the feel of where your tires are gripping and whatnot. And if that fails and you're going to play a video game where drifting is the key, you need a very specific camera angle. So I'm interested to see if they nail it with absolute drift.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get it, it's fucked for me.
Yeah. Drifting games are very particular.
Drifting from right behind or even slightly above the rear, don't even bother. Don't try it. The camera needs to be up and away.
Yeah.
Because you can't feel it. You have to see it.
Yep.
Krista, do you want to recommend something?
I don't have anything. I haven't been doing much except for packing.
All right. Packing it up.
Do you have a recommendation for packing tape?
Amazon packing tape.
Rigged ass.
The red stuff.
Is it red? I thought it was orange. Well, whatever. Stuff that comes on the dispenser that makes for
probably.
loud.
I don't know what
Scotch.
brand it
They
is.
make a good tape and a good egg. All right. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you did listen, I appreciate it. If you're one of the 15, 16 of you, bam. Love every one of you. So, I guess that's it. So until next week when Eric Daniels of Slothfist is going to be on the show, a little teaser there. I'm Dave.
I'm Krista.
And I'm Poop Jay.
Saying, see ya. I gotta fucking think of a way to end the show.
See you the next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Or they try to.
Fistful of Podcasts Radio.
All right. Recording.
Me too. 1,
2,
3.
4.
I came in here and I brought my drink and there's like a less than a third of it left. I gotta go grab something really quick. Hold on.
False countdown.
Yes, we're gonna keep this in post.
I see you guys started packing.
Yeah.
When are you guys moving? What day?
Friday.
Oh,
presumably.
Jesus.
Unless something gets fucked up. But yeah, if you can see David, you can see the 2 shelves behind him that are empty, and then the rest of the room is not.
I am glad I have a very small amount of things.
Yeah. We also have a dumpster out front that we're throwing shit into.
Okay, we are ready.
All right. Do you want to do the count over again?
No, I'll just use the first one.
All right.
We'll just cut all of it out.
Okay, here we go.